Have you ever looked around and wondered why some folks seem to glow with energy well into their 70s? Their steps light, their smiles wide, while others, maybe even you, feel like time's pressing down hard, stealing your breath, your spark, your years, no matter how hard you try to hold on to them. What if I told you it's not just luck or some genetic lottery you didn't win? It's the quiet, everyday choices sneaking up behind you like shadows, chipping away at your vitality before you even notice the cracks forming in your foundation? Today, we're ripping the lid off 5 life-shortening habits that could be dragging you down right this very moment. Habits so sneaky, so woven into the fabric of daily life, that most of us don't see the damage they're doing until the mirror shows a stranger or the doctor's news hits like a thunderclap. From the slow, relentless burn of endless worry to the seductive trap of late-night scrolls that keep you wired when you should be resting. These are the culprits you can't afford to ignore if you want a real shot at a longer, healthier, fuller life. A life where you're not just surviving, but thriving. Stick with me all the way to the end, because I'm not just here to scare you with warnings. I've got real stories from people I've loved and lost, raw lessons carved from watching them fade, and practical steps you can start today to kick these habits to the curb and take back your health, your energy, your years. The last one, it's a silent killer most people shrug off as no big deal, and it might just be the wake-up call you didn't know you needed to turn things around before the clock runs out. Before we dive headfirst into this game-changing journey, if you're ready to uncover the secret into a stronger, longer, more vibrant life, smash that like button right now. It's the fuel that keeps me digging up these unfiltered truths for you, straight from the heart. New here? Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you don't miss a single beat of this life-saving wisdom that's been years in the making. Love what you're hearing so far? Drop a number 1 in the comments below. I want to see it light up my screen. Not your vibe? Toss me a number 0 so I can tweak it and come back stronger for you next time. And hey, where are you watching from today? Drop your city, your little corner of the world. I'm dying to know who's out there riding this wave with me. Let's jump in because your health's waiting and we've got no time to waste. Think back to your 20s or 30s, those wild, reckless days when you could bounce back from anything. A late night that bled into dawn, a junk food binge that had left wrappers everywhere, a week of stress that had barely leave a mark on your face or your spirit. Back then, life felt like an open road stretching out forever. Endless, forgiving, yours to conquer with a grin and a shrug. I remember mine like it was yesterday, racing through college on a diet of cheap coffee and greasy pizza, laughing off deadlines with my buddies, thinking my body was some kind of invincible machine that'd never break down. We all did, didn't we? We'd push the limits, burn the candle at both ends, and wake up ready to do it again, no worse for wear. But as the years stack up like pages in a book you didn't mean to finish so fast, that road starts to narrow, the curves get sharper, and the bumps hit harder than they ever did before. What worked at 25 doesn't fly at 55, 65, or beyond. Your body's not playing by the same rules anymore, and neither should you. I've seen it up close. My Uncle Tuan fading too fast from worries he couldn't shake. My neighbor, Mrs. Lund, fighting battles she didn't have to because she didn't see the signs. Science backs it up loud and clear. Studies say up to 70% of how we age, how long we live us, is in our hands, not locked away in our DNA like some unchangeable fate. That's not just a statistic to skim over with your morning coffee. It's a lifeline, a second chance, a shot at rewriting your story if you're willing to grab it. These 5 habits we're tackling today, they're not just annoyances or quirks you can laugh off. They're thieves in the night, sapping your energy, your health, your time on this earth, and I've got the scars to prove it. I've lived some of these traps, dodged others by the skin of my teeth, watched them take their toll on people I love with every fiber of my being. Let's break them down one by one. with stories that hit close to home and steps you can take to fight back before it's too late. Here's the first habit you've got to ditch, and it's a big one. You can't keep letting chronic worry chew you up. It's a habit that's shaving years off your life, one restless night, one racing heartbeat at a time, and it's more brutal than you might realize. Picture this. Your mind's a hamster wheel that won't stop spinning, bills piling up on the counter, kids drifting further away than you'd like, that creak in your knee that's starting to sound like a warning bell you can't ignore. Sound familiar? It's not just a buzzing in your head that you can shove aside with a deep breath or a stiff drink. It's a full-on assault on your body, a war you're fighting without even knowing the stakes. My Uncle Tuan, 68, when I lost him, was a worrier through and through, always had been ever since I was a kid, trailing him around his dusty garage. He'd sit out on his creaky porch every evening, brow furrowed deep as a plowed field, muttering under his breath about the roof needing new shingles, the grandkids' school fees he couldn't cover, the news blaring doom and gloom through his old radio. I'd tease him, half laughing, "Take it easy, Uncle. You'll live longer if you let it go." But he'd just grunt, "Can't help it, kid. World's a mess, and I've got to figure it out." That was Tuan, stubborn as a mule, heart big as the sky, but always carrying a load he didn't need to shoulder alone. Last year, I started noticing him rubbing his chest, sharp little pains he'd brush off as indigestion, waving me away when I'd nag him to see a doctor. "Just ate too much," he'd growl, popping antacids like candy. But I knew something was off. His eyes looked tired, his hands shook a little when he thought I wasn't watching. One afternoon, I dragged him to the clinic, practically had to wrestle him into the car. He grumbled the whole way, but I wasn't budging. The doc didn't mince words. High blood pressure through the roof, heart strain you could hear in the thump of his pulse, all tied to decades of stress that had been simmering under the surface like a pot left too long on the stove. He'd been stuck in the fight-or-flight mode so long that his body couldn't tell the difference between peace and panic. Blood vessels squeezed tight as a vice, immune system shot to pieces, heart ticking like a pin with a frayed wire. Uncle Tuan didn't make it. A heart attack took him one quiet night last fall, slipped away in his sleep while the crickets sang outside, left us all stunned and hollow, wishing we'd pushed harder, seen clearer. I felt that worry myself, hit 64 a few years back, lost a job I'd clung to for years, and my mind spun out for months. A whirlwind of what-ifs and how-comes that wouldn't quit. I'd lie awake, pulse racing like a drum in my chest, sleep a stranger I couldn't catch. Checked it out, pressure spiking, a warning I couldn't ignore. My friend Mr. Dat, though, he dodged that bullet. Same age, same worries about money and family. But he saw a therapist, started walking every morning with the sun just peeking over the trees, pulled himself back from the edge with a grin I hadn't seen in years. Stress isn't just a mood you can shake off with a nap or a beer. It's a wrecking ball swinging at your health, smashing your heart, your defenses, your shot at more birthdays. Doctors say it's cortisol, that stress hormone flooding your system when you're wired, gumming up your arteries like sludge, firing up inflammation that eats you from the inside. I've seen it take Tuan, nearly take me, but it doesn't have to take you. Ditch it with hikes that clear your head, deep breaths that slow your racing pulse, talks with someone who gets it, maybe a friend, maybe a pro, anything to break that cycle before it breaks you down to nothing. Uncle Tuan's porch sits empty now, a reminder I can't unsee. Don't let worry write your ending too soon. Next up, you've got to stop overloading your plate. Overindulging isn't fueling you for the long haul. It's flooding your system with trouble that can sink you faster than you think. Ever find yourself shoveling down a second helping or a third until your belt's begging for mercy and your stomach's groaning like an overstuffed suitcase? I've been there. Oh man, have I been there. Hit 50 a decade back. Family dinners where I'd pile on rice and gravy and apple pie like it was some kind of eating contest I had to win. I'd lean back after, full to bursting, feeling like a champ. Sure, maybe a little sluggish, but fine, right? That's what I told myself anyway, until I saw what it did to my cousin, Mrs. Fong, 62, who took it to a whole other level. She'd hit the fridge late at night, stress-eating her way through bags of chips, stacks of cookies, anything she could grab to quiet the nerves that had been jangling since her husband walked out years ago. I'd catch her sometimes, sitting in her dim kitchen with crumbs on her shirt, eyes glassy, and I'd think, she's just blowing off steam. She'll be okay. But last spring, she called me up, voice shaky as a leaf in the wind, dizzy spells hitting her out of nowhere, vomiting that wouldn't stop, a scare that landed her in the ER with me pacing the waiting room, hard in my throat. The doc didn't sugarcoat it. Her stomach was screaming bloody murder, stretched too far too often, inflamed to the point of danger. A hair's breadth from something worse like ulcers or a tear that it needs surgery to fix. She'd ignored the signals, the bloating, the nausea, the heaviness, for months, maybe years, until they roared loud enough to knock her flat. I sat with her after, her hand cold in mine, face pale as the hospital sheets, and she whispered, "I didn't know it'd get this bad. I just wanted to feel better." Studies back it up hard. There's this experiment with monkeys, split into two groups. One ate whatever they wanted, no limits, gorged till they couldn't move, and half of them, 50 out of 100, died young from obesity's claws, hearts failing, guts giving out. The other group kept to a lean diet, only lost 12. It's not just monkeys. Humans aren't built different. Overeating clogs your gut like a backed up drain, spikes your sugar into the danger zone, wears your heart thin as paper with every extra pound it has to pump for. I've cut back since then. Smaller plates, slower bites, no seconds unless I'm starving. After seeing Fong trembling in that sterile room, tubes snaking from her arm. She's learning too. Swapped the midnight snacks for herbal tea, dropped pounds she didn't need, says she feels lighter in more ways than one, her smile creeping back. My Aunt Lynn didn't get that chance, ate her way through stress and loneliness, landed with diabetes at 67, gone 2 years later, a shadow of the woman she'd been. Quit piling it on. Savor what you eat, don't stuff yourself silly. Your body's not a dumpster begging to be filled. It's a machine that needs care, not chaos. Fong's still here, fighting. I'll be damned if I let that lesson slip by me again. Then there's sitting too long. It's a habit that's turning your chair into a slow-motion trap, locking you in place while your health slips away one idle hour at a time. Remember when you'd run all day, chasing kids, hauling groceries, dancing till midnight with no thought of stopping? Life was motion, and sitting was just a pit stop. Now it's different. Desk, couch, car, repeat, hours bleeding into days with your backside planted firm. My neighbor, Mr. High, 70, was the king of that game. Retired 5 years back, glued to his recliner like it was his throne. TV humming from dawn till dusk, remote welded to his hand. I'd wave from my porch, he'd nod through the window, never budged an inch. Thought he was living the dream, resting after decades of grind. Last fall, though, he limped over to my yard one morning, face tight as a drum, leaning hard on a cane he'd dug out of storage. Back locked up like a rusted gate, legs swollen and heavy, a doctor's note in his pocket that read like a warning shot. Move or lose it. Sitting had slowed his bliss to a crawl, stiffened his spine till it screamed with every twist, piled on pounds he couldn't shake, no matter how many times he swore he'd start tomorrow. I'd seen him fading, rounder, slower, but didn't push till that day, when he sat on my steps, winded, and said, "I didn't know sitting could do this. Thought I was just old." I've been there myself. Hit 66 a couple years ago, binged a weekend of shows, stood up after, and felt the room tilt. Knees creaking like old floorboards. A dizzy spell that had me grabbing the wall. Research screams it loud. Hours parked in one spot mean heart risks climbing. Bones weakening like brittle twigs. A brain fogging up from blood that's gone sluggish. Mr. High's fighting back now. Short walks around the block. stretching with a groan, grumbling the whole way but alive, cane less shaky each week. My dad didn't fight it, sat through retirement till his heart quit at 74, left us wishing he'd stood up more, moved more, lived more I've dodged it since, paced the house, danced to the radio, anything to keep the trap from snapping shut. Sitting's not rest, it's rust. And you've got to shake it off. Get up, step out, stretch. Don't let your seat steal your strength, your years, your shot at tomorrow. Highs hobbling proof you can turn it around. Don't wait till the limp's yours, don't burn the midnight oil. Late nights are trading your rest for a shorter tomorrow. And the price is steeper than those extra hours are worth. Used to pull all-nighters, didn't we? Work till dawn, laugh till the stars faded, crash and bounce back like it was nothing. My buddy Mrs. Kim, 69, kept that habit alive long past its expiration date. Scrolling news on her phone, fretting over headlines, till 2 a.m., dawn a blurry mess she'd stumble through with coffee and grit. I'd see her at the mailbox, yawning, eyes sunken deep as wells, and I'd say, "You're killing yourself, get some sleep." She'd laugh, plenty of time for that later, but later came too fast. One day last summer, she called me, voice thin, chest tight, gasping like she'd run a mile, panic in every word. I raced her to the ER, tires squealing, her gripping my arm till it bruised. Doc said her clock was off, way off, hormones scrambled from no rest, immunity tanked to nothing, heart racing like a runaway train from years of burning that oil dry. Science nods hard. Mess with your circadian rhythm, that internal ticker syncing you to day and night, and you're begging for trouble. Diabetes creeping in, breakdowns piling up, every organ out of tune. I've slipped every 67, stayed up late worrying over a fight with my son, felt my gut twist, my head pound like a drum till sunrise, woke up wrecked and swore no more. Mrs. Kim's on track now. Lights out by 10, phone off, breathing easier, color back in her cheeks. My Uncle Vin didn't turn it around. Night owl till a stroke hit at 71 left him slurring, then silent, gone too quick. Sleep's not a luxury. It's your shield, your reset, your lifeline. Guard it fierce. Set a bedtime. Dim the screens. Let the dark heal you, or those late hours will carve you hollow. Kim's laugh is back. I'll fight to keep mine too. Last, ditch the dark thoughts. Negativity's a habit that's aging you inside out, faster than any wrinkle cream can hide. Ever catch yourself stuck in a loop of, what's the point, or nothing's ever good? My Aunt Mai, 73, lived in that shadow, grumbling about the weather, the kids who never called, the world spinning wrong. She'd slump in her chair, sip tea that had gone cold, sigh heavy as a storm cloud, thought it was just her way, her right after a hard life. Last winter, a cold hit her hard, wouldn't lift no matter the meds. Doc said her gloom fed it, stress hormones running wild, fight drained out of her. I sat with her, her hands frail, and she muttered, "Maybe I let it win." I've dipped there, 65, lost a friend to cancer, spiraled into why bother, felt my chest tighten, my days gray. Studies say it clear, pessimism fuels bad habits like drinking or skipping meals, shortens your fuse, dims your spark. Mai's shifting, chats with me over tea, small smiles breaking through. She's still here, fragile but fighting. My cousin Bao didn't climb out, sank deep, drank till his liver quit at 68, left us aching. Lift your eyes, laugh at the rain, hope for the sun, your mind's your muscle. Flex it bright. I'm Mai's pro, it's not too late. Don't let the dark write your fade. These 5, worry chewing you raw, overeating flooding your frame, sitting trapping your strength, late nights stealing your rest, gloom aging your soul, aren't just habits. They're chains I've seen snap lives short, links I've felt clank around my own wrists. Uncle Tuan's stress cutting him down, Mrs. Fuong's binges nearly breaking her, Mai's darkness dimming her light. They're proof you can dodge this if you act fast. I've cut back, moved more, slept right, healthier at 70 than 60, stronger than I dreamed. The lesson's fierce. Break these now, walk it off, rest deep, lighten your load, or they'll break you, piece by piece. What hit you hardest? Tuan's empty porch, Kim's midnight scare, Hai's swollen legs? Drop it in the comments. I'm all ears waiting to hear what's sticking. Love this? Smash that like, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Let's keep thriving together. Share it, your family, your crew, because time's ticking, and they need this too. See you next time, sharper, tougher, ready to own your years.